Welcome to the Write Your Own Story podcast. I'm your host, Betsy Leonidas, and the founder of the Write Your Own Story company. Girl, I can tell you right now, you are definitely enough. Here we value service, sisterhood, connection, laughter, and that super genuine, keep it real, tell you like it is honesty. My hope is at the end of each episode, you realize you can do whatever it is you dream about and that you are not alone with what you struggle with. I'm hoping that you are snapping and clapping and hell yes in your way through each one of these episodes. So if this tracks with you, let's get started. I'm so glad you're here. All right, everyone. Welcome back to the latest episode of the Write Your Own Story podcast. I am your host, Betsy Leonidas, and I am so excited to be here with writer and podcast host, Sarah Heringer. Sarah, thank you so much for your time and for being here.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So today is going to be a conversation all around grief. If you've ever lost someone and felt the room maybe go quiet around you, or sometimes you feel like maybe people are nervous to say their name, maybe you're feeling lost or a little ashamed or alone in your own grief, stay with us. We're going to talk about the truth of what grief actually really feels like and what it really is. And if you're in it right now, after this episode, you will know that you're absolutely not alone. Sarah, I'm so excited to have, excited feels like a weird word, but I'm so honored to have this honest conversation about grief with you. Just a heads up to everyone listening, there is definitely a trigger warning. We are going to talk about death. We're going to talk about trauma, but we're also mostly going to talk about what grief really is. So I like to start each show by just asking one question. If there's a woman listening today and maybe she's inside this unthinkable chapter and she really lets your story land on her heart, what do you want her most to walk away with today?
Yeah, I thought that was a really great question and a great intro right into the conversation of grief, because initially when I read over it, I had a lot of hesitation and was pretty resistant to answer it. And so I was like, okay, so what is that? Why, where's the resistance coming from? What is it? And it's because when you are in grief, I think everyone is trying to hand you something.
Ooh.
They're like, hold this, here's this will make it better. Or if you can cling to this, or let's give your suffering some meaning, then we're already starting to get past the moment of grief of, I know you're in it, one day you won't be. I know you're here, but it's, there's always this positioning. And so, and it's also a great question. And so I was thinking more of approaching it as far as, instead of giving them something to hold, you're valid and feeling whatever you're holding, because you're already holding enough.
Yeah.
You don't need me to put one more thing in your hand. I don't know what part of my story, or I don't know what to say. There are some things that do really land and help people. That's great if it does. That's not the point. It's more about, if someone is sitting in grief right now, I hope this podcast gives them a place to join and just be present and validated and seen in their grief is really it. I think is the really important thing to start with.
I appreciate that so much. I feel like I already just learned so much. So I appreciate that. And, as someone who at the moment is not sitting in a loss of grief, but has people in her life who does, you want to be able to support those people in the best way possible. And so insightful to be like, maybe don't give them another thing to hold. Like to your point, they're carrying too much, but to just validate and listen and just be a soft place to land.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, with the grief process, it's so different for everyone. There's nothing linear about it. And the thing that has been most supportive and helpful through the process is having your group of people who are kind of ride or die, that it's like, where are you sitting today? Are you, we've created, at least in my circle, this language surrounding grief, as grief is this ocean. And some days you are swimming in it and the riptide is pulling you under. And I share it's a riptide day. And
Mm.
instead of a lifeguard, someone's like, I'm coming in with you so you're not swimming by yourself. Right? They're just going to go in the waters with you. I'll get ravaged with you. I'm going to sit and cry with you. Then there are days where, because part of the grief thing is that we'll talk about is the performative side. And there are
Mm.
some days where it's like, I don't want to go and sit and be sad and talk about how I'm a grieving widow.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
All dogs are welcome on the show. Oh my
Okay,
gosh.
good. Yeah.
I can't tell you, almost every guest I talk to has a dog and I love
Yes.
it. So hello, pup.
Yes. So that's Teddy. He's like,
Hi, Teddy.
heard my sister and is going to go greet her.
I love it.
Uh, yeah. So the performative side where it might feel like I should be walking around sad all the time. I should be in this depressive state. And so some days you're like, I'm sitting on the beach next to the ocean and the sun
Yeah.
is out and it's warm. There's never going to be a day where that body of water is not in my life. It's just,
Mm.
where are you at? And so friends come and just meeting you there, they're like, yeah, let's have a picnic on the beach, or let's go for a swim, or that is, it's just someone doing it with you is really all anyone could ever ask for, and have help. That's the only thing that's going to help, I would say.
I feel like we could literally just like put a pin in it, because I think right there you've taught people what to ask for and you've taught people how to help. This is incredible. I have full body goosebumps when you said someone's actually going to get in the water with you.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, I get it. That makes so much sense. Oh, thank you for sharing that. And
Yeah.
I really just also want to honor the fact that when you were like, oh, I don't like this question to start, makes you uncomfortable, to be like, what's that about? I think that that is a life skill that all of us can pause and take note from, no
Mm-hmm.
matter what's on your plate. When we feel uncomfortable, instead of pushing it aside to be brave enough and be curious, gets us to these incredible answers like you just shared. So
Yeah.
amazing already.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. You're overachieving at this podcast, for the record.
Oh, well, thank you. Okay. I know you said it wasn't about performance, but maybe no.
Right. But I just want to
Yes.
let you know that you're winning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So before we dive into all of the things grief, one of my best friend lost her husband under different circumstances, but one of her favorite things, and one of the things that brings her the most comfort and joy, is to say his name, to tell stories. So I would love to honor Patrick. I want to hear all about him. And we can talk about the loss. We can talk about anything you want, but like some of my favorite questions are like, who was he to the people who loved him?
Yeah, that is something that I learned. You in the very beginning, they're like, we want to hear about Patrick. We want to hear about Patrick. And the grief, it really takes, I think it's disorienting, the brain fog you're in. I felt almost like I was a bad wife because I was like, I don't know how to talk about him. Like there is such this, I think, of a protection, this dissonance or whatever. And so in the very early stages, I was like, I don't know how to do that. I think I was just so overwhelmed by the loss of it. And yes, that is 100% how it feels moving forward. Is you want him, like moving to Colorado, every single new person that I meet, they don't get to meet Patrick.
Yeah.
And the really hard thing is that it's like, I also don't want Patrick to be the most devastating thing that happened to me, because he's
Yeah.
not. He's the most amazing thing that happened to me. Losing him was the devastation. And so, yes, it is. It's such a, when someone wants to sit and talk about who the person actually was, and then even let you ramble to a point where you're like, you're not making any sense, but that's great. You're just in the moment of, and it opens it up so that you can really be almost in this felt sense of love, because language is going to fail eventually. I think that's really what you're providing when you're like, tell me about them. You're like, let's revisit what being with this person felt like.
Yeah.
And I do, because of circumstances, also because of who Patrick was in the community, I was able to hear a lot about who he was to other people. And I think one of the questions you asked was like, what was it like when like he walked into the room? And
Yeah.
I was thinking, I was like, everyone wanted to be in the room with Patrick.
He just had that
He
like magnetic presence.
Yes, it was so magnetic. It was very commanding but reassuring. It was
Mm.
very like talk about someone. I mean, I think one of the biggest challenges of all is I felt so safe with him
Yes.
and safety being taken in a real way, but he was such a safe person even like from a social standpoint because when you look at the guy, he's 6'1", muscular doesn't even begin to describe it. He's also very heavily tattooed. He was military. He's an elite athlete. And so it would be really easy to just project a lot of things. He's a very attractive, physically attractive man. And a lot of people would initially do that. And then they're like, oh, you have a conversation with him for 5 minutes and you figure out how genuine and kind and thoughtful and caring and uh, he never made anyone feel less than. He even, I talk about it. I'm like, I know that there was a lot of women who were attracted to my husband. That's fine. He never took advantage of that. He was
Good man.
aware of that, yes, and wanted and in the gym in a particular very physical training environment was very proud of the fact that even positions, you know, like if someone's stretching in a position to not be standing behind the woman, you know,
Yeah.
to ask if I'm going to cue you physically, asking for consent, can I physically touch
Yeah.
you? And so he was just really this extraordinary human of you know capacity, physical capacity, brains, looks, emotional intelligence, and really was I it's a big loss for everyone, obviously, to not have him. And then I think all the time of like how many people are just not going to meet him and not have that presence or that gift of someone is it's really hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is like the cruelest thing about time, you know, for someone who's so impactful and such a light
Mm-hmm.
and such an example of what it means to be, to provide safety and respect, and for that to be cut short. It's just not fair. Ugh.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Yes.
he sounds large and magnetic. I mean, all of this energetically and charismatic and kind. And I mean, I can imagine what a gift it was to be married to him.
Absolutely. Yes. And it
Yeah,
was truly.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I also really appreciate the perspective and the distinction between you don't want his loss to define you, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that is he was the greatest gift to you, and losing that gift was your greatest loss. And I think that that's a really important distinction. And I think, you know, the hardest moments often shape so much about us, but like we don't want to be defined by those moments. Like some of us, you know, like, you know, we don't want to be defined always by how strong we are, like things like that. So I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate just being like, there's so much more to this than just the loss.
Yes. Yeah. And it's you know, just to validate the feeling, because you will with people kind of post, you'll tell them, or I've in my experience, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I'll share. I'm like, I had a pretty big trauma. This is what happened. And you see the recognition, like the horror kind of wash over someone's face. And then the exact thing we're talking about, where they're like, do you do I say anything? And so it's the uncomfortable, like let's just sweep it under the rug. And I think that for anyone listening who's not in grief, and a big part of my podcast is addressing the grief illiteracy. That's a great time to invite that person into the room when you are hearing about the devastation, but you haven't met the person. Is there anything you want to share about them? Is there, or even just simply asking what was their name? If they're not, if they
Mm,
haven't been introduced, you know, what was his name? What was your husband's
yeah.
name? That goes a really long way with the invitation of just inviting them into whatever conversation that you're having.
Yeah, that's incredible. Does it help you feel like what does that feel like when someone opens that invitation? Does it address loneliness? Does it like how does it help?
Yeah, it makes them a real person instead of a devastation,
Okay, I
you
love
know?
that.
Yeah,
Yep,
you're
that
like,
makes
no,
total
this Patrick was a human being. He's not a devastation. He's not a devastation that happened to you. So let's talk about the person
sense.
and
Hmm.
who was he and is there any even and sometimes there, you might just be like, I can't talk about it right now. And no
Yeah.
one should be like, ooh, I think someone would rather for me, I would rather have someone say and have the invitation open versus I'm so uncomfortable with grief or what might happen next that I freeze and I don't even acknowledge the experience of what you've gone through and maybe you do want to talk about your person right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you ever find that when you're telling your event of what happened and you see people's face of whatever the reaction might be, shock or worry, all the things, do you have that innate feeling to comfort them? Because I know that's uncomfortable when you're saying something out loud and you see people's jaw drop and you're like, oh God, what do I do? Like, do you ever feel responsible to take care of the listener while you're telling your own pain?
Yes, and I think to avoid that,
Yeah, because
there
it's not
are
it's not your responsibility.
right, no, exactly. And so I'm sure, yes, that's easily depending on where you're at with that, with
Hmm.
understanding uh if, if you've lost someone and you haven't been to a place before where you're like your emotions are your emotions, they're not mine, then of course this is gonna bleed over with that. Where I found it showing up was I wouldn't tell anyone. So where I'm
Mm.
already saving them is by not sharing because I don't right want to have this uncomfortable where I remember I had coffee with a group of women here and I had my wedding ring on at the time and told them the story of like yeah Patrick and I met we had this business together whatever and then you there was this and then the story just it's not current
Hmm.
anymore and I was leaving out details or you might say something like oh I'm a widow
Yeah.
instead of I had a wildly traumatic experience that happened, a loss of a magnitude that is really unfathomable. It
Hmm.
has fucked me up big time,
Rightfully
and
so.
this is something you should know about me, and
Yeah.
then it is. So I did, in that moment, and then I went home and I had this insane nervous system reaction where it's like I was amped, I didn't sleep well, I felt so sick and it's like it's because you weren't you were sheltering someone else from your lived experience and in that moment you had to carry it all by yourself in this group of women who had no idea what was going on with you whatsoever.
Mm.
There was zero and because in this moment of this intense pain there is zero opportunity for connection unless you're completely honest and transparent. It does
Yeah.
not mean I have to trauma dump. I don't have to go through step by step the night of what happened, all of that. But being able to say like, yeah, I'm not okay. Like I'm not
Yeah.
this happened and I'm not okay in this moment, right? I'm capable of having coffee, but this is a big part of if we're going to have any type of honesty and connection, this is probably something you should know about me,
Absolutely. And,
you know?
you know, it is, and we don't often realize the ripple effect of being brave enough to say things like that. When you teach another woman how to raise her hand and be like, hey, I'm going to
Mhm.
give you the really, reallys, and I'm going to let you know that I'm not okay. And here's where my capacity is. Like,
Mhm.
to me, if I were on the receiving end of that, my shoulders would completely drop. I would feel so warm and open and comfortable to be like, okay, I'll meet you right where
Mhm.
you are. And that just gave me permission to be brave enough to say that in a situation that I might need to be able to do that. And the more we can do that for women, the better.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we have kind of mentioned that it was a traumatic event. Before we
Mhm.
dive, let's dive into all things grief. I would love for you to share whatever is comfortable for you around your scenario so people can just have the perspective of what you've been through as we apply the conversation around grief.
Yeah, so Patrick and I were together for 13 years. We were
Mm,
married for almost 9,
mhm.
and we were business partners. We had a business together. A lot of our it's and maybe we talk more about that type of relationship at a in the conversation elsewhere, but there's a lot of overlap where he and I were very integrated into each other's lives, just I think beyond husband and wife. And we lived in downtown Cincinnati in the Over the Rhine neighborhood, and in the neighborhood where we wanted to invest in the community. We had our business there. We wanted to live there. We didn't want to be like, oh, we make money here and then we go out and
Yeah,
live.
totally.
We really
Yeah.
wanted to invest full 100% in the place where we were living. And on the early morning of June 4th, a man who was had popped his ankle monitor off 4 months prior and was AWOL and a repeat violent offender came to our house, broke in, and attacked both of us. And unfortunately, Patrick, with him being in contact with him the most and fighting him off, was stabbed to death and succumbed to his wounds. And he basically bled out in my arms.
Oh my gosh.
And uh, and from so a very very traumatic way to lose someone. And there was even in the very early stages, the trauma actually prevented me from feeling the grief.
Mm,
There was no way to access that my I was just 100% hyper vigilant, activated, was not, was lucky to get 3 hours of sleep a night. The first, it was a very, like when we talk about what's an emergency
yeah.
situation, it's like,
Yeah.
I now know what an emergency is.
Yeah.
My, it's a very different life experience to have something like that. Um, and be in a different places, even from family and friends who were immediately in grief. And I knew, I was like, I'm not there yet. I actually don't access the pain as far as that goes because I'm so traumatized. This is going to have to be dealt with before I'm able to sit in the grief and process that and understand what it's like to carry that.
Thank you for being vulnerable enough to share that. And clearly, I am so sorry for your experience. It is absolutely heartbreaking. And I can only imagine the trauma that sits in your body after something like that. So I honor everything that you've been through and can't even begin to imagine, understand, but just know my heart is here for you. Um, I, it almost sounds like with a traumatic event like that, and to your point about like it kind of doesn't even let you access grief. And when we talk about the nervous system in the body, it's almost like adrenaline maybe is coursing through your
Mm-hmm.
veins. That like that numbness is almost there as a protection. Is that what that felt? Could you even know what that felt like? What did like, you said that you were basically only able to get 3 hours of sleep. And it's so interesting to hear that everyone else is already settled and is starting their grieving process and
Mm-hmm.
you're in this different space. Did that feel lonely? What did that feel like?
Oh yeah, I mean, yes, it wasn't all, it's like almost like it's a protective mechanism. It is a protective mechanism for sure. The
Yeah.
trauma response, the adrenaline, the cortisol, just like from a very personal weird thing, those type of hormones create you smell bad. Like when
Really?
you are activated, yes, on that level, and
Yeah.
you're secreting that much adrenaline and cortisol. I would shower and get out of the shower and I'm like, I stink. And it's not like armpit, it's just you are secreting hormones. And so that, and in my, I call it my before life, I was a somatic practitioner. I understand a lot about the nervous system and the body. It was like, oh, it's just so fascinating how I used to teach about this, but now I'm
Mhm.
like in it. And that's
Mhm.
a completely different place to be on, from like, oh yeah, I've researched this and I've seen it, to now I'm actually living what this is like. And it's you, the hypervigilance, like you don't have your basic needs. Your body's like, absolutely not. We're not going to even meet your basic needs. We're not going to eat. We're not going to sleep. It's really impossible. And that's part of it, is it's impossible to connect, because connection requires safety. And
Mm.
so, uh, and there's a lot of times where you hear where grief will tear a family apart. And I I have a very gracious, Patrick's parents and his sister, very, we couldn't, and truthfully, we couldn't be around each other in the beginning. It's not like they were like, oh, we're gracious of her being traumatized. They're in their deep grief.
Yeah.
I'm, where I'm at, and everyone, it's kind of going back to the ocean. You're all falling to the ocean floor at different places. And so the
Yeah.
thing that I learned from that is, in the very early parts of grief, there is going to be some isolation, because even if I was in grief, I'm going to be in a different place than someone else is. And
Mhm.
it takes a while for things to settle, or for me to feel safe enough in my body. Or even seeing a lot of, like, seeing his family was very, it triggered me.
Yeah.
And then you're like, you're angry, and you're like, I can't be around you. And so I think that's a lot in the early, like, people just not having that awareness and allowing whatever that narration to that activation, whatever that emotion is, to define the person, or to write a story about them, or like, they're intolerable, I can't be around them. And you're like, well, they are today, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're
I
absolutely
know.
right.
Yeah.
Like, they are today. But yeah, I mean, it took there to get to a point, like a lot of EMDR, ketamine therapy, things, a lot of tools and aids to help take that particular traumatic event and get it to a point where my body was like, okay, we can trust that safety is able to be established again. And that took it took and there's still, I still struggle with that. There are nights that are hard, but it took probably 3 months before I had the capacity to look around and say, okay, I can sit with you in your grief for an hour, you know.
Mhm.
um yeah, it definitely, it took some time.
It's really interesting to understand it from the perspective of, well, one, so important to say and acknowledge and hold space for the fact that people are falling in the ocean at different rates in different places and different times. And that brings up a lot of feelings that don't get to fit into neat boxes, don't have timelines associated with them. You just have to honor where you are, be open and honest, and pretty much just do the best you can. What I also found really interesting is that after such a traumatic event, that your nervous system is so shot that safety is the only thing that will kind of be able to heal the nervous system. Where I feel like so often in grief or in any type of traumatic situation, certainly not to the extent of yours, but anything that is trauma to someone, your brain is constantly trying to make sense of it. And if I can write a clean story for it and put it in a nice little neat box, I will finally feel better in my body. Where I think
Hmm.
what your point is that it's much more about the somatic aspect of it and teaching your body to get its basic needs back, to be able to feel safe in your own body, and to sort of start to trust your own mind and body again. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, yes, and I a couple of things. When someone hears my story, what's interesting is I hear someone almost discrediting their own. They're like, well, my experience isn't yours. It's never going to be. My experience is never going to be someone else's. I
Mm-hmm.
have a friend who, she's also a widow. Her husband, from diagnosis of a rare blood cancer to death, was 30 days. I can't imagine watching the man of my dreams and my husband dying in front of me in a hospital bed. So
Yeah.
I always say the worst thing that's happened to you is the worst thing that's happened to you. And
Mhm.
grief, loss within itself, you losing someone, if we particularly focus in on the nervous system of our social nervous system, people are co-regulators to us. And they are the reason why we feel safe, is because we have that nervous system. It's what, when we talk about attachment styles, it is what secure attachment is. It's the
Yeah.
co-regulator of the nervous system. And your nervous system doesn't understand the difference between the loss of a human and the loss of a limb.
Mm,
And
interesting.
so and you don't, and so no one would ever tell an amputee, don't worry, it'll grow back in a few years.
Great point.
You know,
Right?
they would understand you can still have a life. There's always going to be grief. It's always going to be different.
Hmm.
You can learn adaption.
Hmm.
And in the very beginning, what it is really important for people to understand with that type of loss, that is trauma. So you don't have to be attacked first, right?
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
have to have a traumatic experience happening to your body. You
Yeah.
losing someone on that level, that is trauma to the nervous system. And so that is why a lot of times in grief, it's like, why can't I sleep? Why can't I eat? Why am I so jumpy? Why am I so aggravated? All of these things. It's like, well, there isn't, you also understand that the unfathomable can happen.
Yes. And that's so unsettling.
Yes, yes. Like to a woman who's lost their child, that's the
Hmm.
thing that they've been anxious, right? And there's a really big difference between anxiety of
Hmm.
the thing happening, because your body will never let you know what it's actually like to lose that person, because why
Hmm.
would it? It's such an
Yeah.
awful thing. So you know the anxiety of the anticipation of having something horrible happening to you. But when you're on the other side of it, when that thing has actually happened,
Hmm.
that is what the grief is, and the trauma and the loss. And so from the rebuild aspect of it, for me it was, I was like, I have to start with basic human needs, which is, how do I reestablish safety in my body, which seems like a pretty insurmountable thing at this point.
Yes.
The person who was my protection, my co-regulator, touch, right? Even down to like with widows in particular, the physical touch aspect is
Yes.
gone, and needing to, like, what is this vessel need? And then also for me, that might be it for people. But there was this balance between what does the vessel need and what does the soul need, and
Ooh, I love
how are those basic things being met right now in order to have some kind of safety reestablished in the body.
when you were able to recognize, like, okay, I have to be able to get the vessel sort of shored up.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also need to check in with my soul, and what does my soul need to quiet? I imagine that when things are all out of alignment and adrenaline is coursing, everything feels so loud. It's just, how were you able
Yeah.
to slow up, for someone listening who is in the midst of feeling
Mm-hmm.
completely dysregulated? Like, and I know EMDR and therapy and ketamine, and you mentioned those,
Mm-hmm.
but like for the moment today, right now, listening or right before bed, what's something that they could do? Just one small step to feel a little bit safer or a little bit more connected to their soul.
Well, I think so. I would, the big thing is you are all nerve ending,
Mm,
and you are also all intuition, because logic no longer applies to you. And that is a really weird place to be, where
cool.
you're like, logic has its places, but it has its limits, and we are
Hmm.
beyond its limits. And so the two things you can count on is everything that's coming in is
Hmm.
either nerve ending, and does it feel frantic? Is it rumination? Is it repeating itself over and over again? That's probably more like nerve ending, and it's probably signaling to you its needs to be met, which,
Hmm.
like the under eating is a really big thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, in the very beginning, I was basically drinking these like peanut butter milkshakes because that's the
Yeah.
only calories I could get in. It's like, it does, like, let's not talk about like, is it healthy or not? Let's just, whatever
Right.
is going to get you to eat, eat. And if that's a bag of Oreos, then do it and don't feel shame, you know? Like,
Yep.
get
Right.
some calories on board
Get some
because you're,
calories in there. Just get moving. Yep. I love
yep,
that.
yeah, yes. Then you can, once that is more of a routine thing, then you can switch to, all right, my body needs actual nutrients. And
Yeah.
so what are nutrient dense foods that I can stomach and handle? And for me,
Mhm.
it was, I mean, I ate the same thing for 5 months because that's all I could handle. And I knew it had my nutrition covered. And I was like, I don't have bandwidth. I don't have it beyond this, you know? And that, I do think that's why people providing food is huge. It's a basic human need.
I love that. It brings a whole new meaning to the meal train.
Yes, a hundred
You think
percent.
you're
Because
taking
you're,
something off your to-do list, but you're not. You're
yeah,
nourishing them.
yes, 100%. It's nourishment and nurture at the very basic level, and it's huge. So
Mm.
that can do, it does a lot. And then yes, you don't have to work for it. That person is not
Yeah.
cooking. They're able to have immediate access to nourishment. And then it's, you know, move your body. Your nervous system does need to discharge energy and find different types of movement. Dance really worked for me. It helped
Mm.
a lot. So
Were you
some
a
that,
dancer before?
no. and and you don't have to be. It really
Right.
is
I love
like, yeah, you can her name is Gabrielle Roth. It's
that.
Five
Mm.
Waves, Five Rhythms. She's got a playlist on Spotify. And to me, that also is something that when I needed energy to move, which even depressive energy, anger, I was amped, any of it, it really gets you through. And so I'm not a dancer. I don't have rhythm. It's amazing how your body will just, when you
Mm.
listen to it, it will move the way that feels good. And so it's in respecting the energy that you have. That was really hard for me because as an athlete, I was
Mhm.
like, you're going to maintain this routine. You're going to continue to train. And that I was like, you are being violent to your
Mm.
body to try to request it to perform and output in a way that pretending like nothing happened to you is
Yeah.
kind of like the dismissal of like what it's going to take to heal from this is the most athletic thing you will ever have to do. So
Yeah.
the reason why you are so physically fit is so you can actually handle something like this. We don't need to train for this anymore. Now we need to get immediately into recovery. So when I do say movement, it was what are recovery movements while
Mhm.
understanding that's a need. And then from the soul level, it is like that intuition. I mean, if there's anything that I would tell uh, a person, especially a woman who might who might be getting a lot of logical answers, is you are going to know things and you don't know how you know them, because when something like this happens, for me, I was the closest to the veil that I had ever been. It was so thin, and
Mm.
it's like, you of course you know, like
Yeah.
it is your intuition, and you don't have the energy to have the performance anymore. That's the first thing that gets blown out. And to me, I was like, wow, if I had just even earlier in life cared less about managing people's perspective, like if I took so much energy on that I no longer have it and it's gone. This intuition's been there this whole time. It's kind of,
Did you? I love that. It strips you down to the core of,
mm-hmm.
and you know, it's not something that you particularly ask for, but it is a perspective that is a gift. Did you find it hard to hear your intuition or to trust your intuition after being in such an unsafe situation that you certainly didn't bring on yourself, but just experienced?
I no, it was not hard for me to hear it or to trust it.
Good.
And I was surrounded by people who 100%, they did not, they believed in my agency, and that was huge.
Mm.
They like, I had a friend who, incredible, she took a month off of FMLA. She came and she was my second brain cell for me. She did. But there was never once where it was, you can't right? Like, oh, you're so wounded. You can't be
Mhm.
trusted. You shouldn't be making decisions. There was never that. Like, as this intuitive side of me of making decisions that some needed to be made really quickly, there were certain knowings that I had that didn't need it to be acted upon. I just knew. And
Mhm.
the really important thing that I had to work through was, I don't need to validate. I don't need someone else to validate, and I don't even need to do anything with this. This is a knowing that I have. I don't And seeking validation is me not trusting it. But
Mm.
so I journaled a lot of that stuff. I did write a lot of that down, and and then you start to see the patterns over time of knowing, like, okay, this is nervous system activation versus, yeah, this is intuition. And I'm starting to trust more and more how those things feel. They do feel different, and both are important, you know.
Critically,
Yes.
absolutely. I have done a lot of somatic work myself in therapy. And one of the things that was really helpful that I did with my therapist was to be able to identify how both of those things, like the nerve ending feelings as well as the intuition feelings, felt in my
Hmm.
body. I went through something and felt like I completely disconnected from my intuition. So it was our particular exercise to get back to that, which is why I asked you that question. But I would love, you had mentioned the nerve endings feelings feel like this kind of fiery, big, um, and so I appreciate that for people listening who are trying to decipher between the two, because everything just feels like gobbledygook and a on fire mess.
Yes.
For
Yeah.
what does intuition feel like in your body? So people can start to recognize that maybe in their own, or at least know what to look for in their own body when they're trying to connect to it.
Yeah, I feel it's like this. It's this, it's sudden. It's this little
Mm,
flash, and then it doesn't really offer a story behind it.
I love that.
It's just this bloop, it's like handing you this piece of paper with something on it, and it's
Hmm.
not. And then it usually, there's not like a lot of rumination. There may not, again, and it's not often paired with logic. And I think that is why people dismiss it so much.
Yeah.
Is it's like, I need validation, I need a spreadsheet to know
Mhm.
that those numbers are going to make sense as to why that
Mhm.
decision came to mind. And it's, I mean, and maybe intuition might even seem really woo woo to
I
people,
love,
maybe,
yeah.
right? Like, they're like, oh, it's woo woo, it's out there. And intuition, at its very basic, is a survival instinct.
Mm.
Because how do you know that snake is venomous and going to bite you before it does?
Yeah.
You're
Absolutely.
right. There's like this intuition that knows adaptation in real time. And it is at its very, that is just how, even this vessel, I think that there is definitely soulfulness to it,
Hmm.
but it is part of the vessel of a human body, is having intuition. I don't think that is something separate, because it is a survival. There's this knowing, you don't know why you know, but it's going to prevent you from eating that plant. It's going to prevent you from petting that animal that's going to kill you, right? Like, you just know, and you don't need to validate it. You move on. And you're seeing some really primal things come up, right? When we get rid of the conditioning. And that's why
Hmm.
I think intuition is so loud and it's so online, is you're stripped down to some of the very basic functions of being a human being. And then it's pretty quiet, it's pretty certain, it doesn't require validation. I don't think you could probably find it, might be the
Yeah.
problem. It's like, well, there's usually not logic attached to it. And to me, there's this, it doesn't amp my nervous system up.
Mhm. Agreed.
It's a very grounding sense, versus the activation of the nervous system. hypervigilance, which is also protection, but it feels flighty, or you
Yeah.
go into, or you go into freeze, which is a depressive
Freeze.
state, and
Totally.
complete inaction at all. And I
Yeah.
think the intuitive part really grounds you with self, and you're like, okay, and it's asking something of you that you can handle. It's, it's not something that's too out of like the realm of what you're capable of in that moment.
That's so important for people to hear. I think society, for a lot of reasons, disconnects women from their intuition, and maybe men
Hmm.
too. I'd have to think more about that, but just kind of going off the cuff here. I think so often we are taught not to trust ourselves and that we need
Hmm.
validation and that we have to be perfect and we have to manage people's expectations. But I love the way that you explained it, that it's not woo woo. It's not some gift that it's innate. It's almost
Hmm.
like I was kind of having this thought, this might be totally off, but it's almost like a sense. They talk about the five senses. I guess they do sometimes talk about it as like a sixth sense, but you wouldn't feel the need to validate why the red in the stoplight is red. You're like, it's red, man. I don't know. Like it's
Yes.
just red. Or why a smell is a certain smell, like a lemon smells like a lemon. You're like, I can't
Yeah.
explain it. I just know it. You can trust your intuition in the same way because it
Yes.
is truly innate to your body. You were born with it, which kind of
Yes.
like gives us the permission to be like, I don't need the validation because to your point, it doesn't really exist. It's a logic that just sits within you.
Yes,
That's pretty
absolutely.
liberating.
Yeah, I think, and that's a great way to say it, a very succinct and very exactly. It's like, no, the color is what the color is, and we could get into it, but do we need to?
Right. Do we need to? I know, just know I'm supposed to stop right now. Like, yeah, at
Yes.
the stop. I don't think we
Yes.
should get into it. I think we should just stop. Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. Okay, this is very cool, very insightful. Um, Getting into sort of the societal shoulds and what have you found in your grief journey, and going back to the top of the show where you're like people give you so much to hold in grief that
Hmm.
people just want to alleviate your pain probably, but don't realize that they're keep handing you what they feel like is a helpful instruction manual, maybe to be like, you should grieve this way, you should grieve this way, this will help. Did you ever feel pressure to grieve in a certain way or behave or show up in a certain way?
Yeah, I mean, the truth is, everyone in society is horrible at handling grief and knowing what
Why do
to
you think
do.
that is?
It goes to grief illiteracy,
Mm,
like we are a grief illiterate society.
mhm,
We there If you look at um tribal back, like where there are tribal societies where they know when that you cannot do it alone. And I
mm,
don't know if it's like the Puritan in us of like, hide your shit,
mhm.
who knows, right? But it's like, again, it's like I think that is a great and a very interesting conversation of like, where did the pathology of this grief illiteracy come from? And
Mhm.
we could, like, in the same way where we could pathologize the patriarchy or whatever, it's like, it's almost irrelevant because now we're here and what we're
We're here.
identifying is a problem, and it's a
Yeah.
problem that needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, I wrote an article, 10 things not to say to the grieving, because we all love our listicles and that,
Mhm.
but the thing that was most interesting about the engagement of that is the experience of people in grief, of how there are these societal expectations, even down to like, if you are someone who lives if you're in a corporate world, they give you 5 days for bereavement.
I
I Right?
what?
I
Right?
No. I In our business, we had a team of coaches and a head coach in particular that on day one was like, I'm running the business. I'll let you know what I need, but you don't even like, I'm taking this.
Mhm.
And I see where I have true community. There is like, as much in this world, there is true community is everything, because again, going back to the tribe, they would never be like, you're going to carry this on your own. They're
Yeah.
doing grief ceremonies. They
Mm.
are doing rage ceremonies. They are tending to you. They are taking care of you. There is nothing shameful about any of the feelings that you are feeling. And um, we are also we're fixers,
Mm-hmm.
and even down to like everything needs to have a solution, even our suffering, in order to, well, let's make meaning out of this suffering. Let's have this arc where there's this like this hero's journey, because that's every story, right? Like, put your superhero, there's a formula to it. You put your hero in the tree, you set the tree on fire, and then the hero comes up with a way to escape. And it's like, no, the tree just gets fucking burned down, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the
Yeah.
story. And so a lot of times the pressure to behave a certain way, it goes back to the, well, you're really uncomfortable with this moment because you can't fix it. You expected whatever mouth noises you just made to make me feel better, and it didn't.
Yeah.
And again, we're so fixated on the what's next, like what is even, I mean, the word healing in itself, of like, well, when does the healing happen? And it's like, well, you, and my personal philosophy is, grief is nothing to be fixed. It's not a
Mm.
problem. Grief is love.
Mm.
It is love and grief are different sides of the same coin. And when you lose the vessel to be able to have that direct physical connection of love, that is the cost of love. That is the cost of attachment, is grief. And so when you are in grief, it's like, why would I want to fix this? You're telling me
Mm.
not to love that person anymore. And
Mm.
that is not ever going to happen. There's never going to be a day where I do not love Patrick. The
Yeah.
intensity, in the same way where it's like, you can't be horny all the time. Sometimes you got to go to Home Depot, and you have to function in real life. You can't have that intensity of desire all the time, right? So you can't have that intensity of grief all the time, but it's never going to not be there for that person. And so there's everything you are feeling, there's actually nothing wrong with that. And I think that's one of the very first big misconceptions of it, is thinking that what someone is feeling, just because it is incredibly painful, is wrong or bad, or there's a time and a space where you shouldn't feel those things anymore. And that's just not the same. That's just not the case. It is a Grief is your body continuing to love, and it having nowhere to land and nowhere to go.
It's so validating for people who are feeling the ebbs and flows of the intensity of the feeling, and to be so sort of lost in the ocean of like trying to make sense of it. It just, to boil that down to the beautiful simplicity of it, is grief is the other side of the coin of love. And you just, it is fluid and ever present, and you just have to meet yourself where you are. And also, we've talked a lot about like those on the other side who are just so uncomfortable, mostly from an empathetic place, and they just
A
would do
hundred
anything
percent.
for you to feel better. But
Yes.
to be able to, with a little bit more comfort in their own body, hold capacity for, hey, this is just their expression of love right now. And
Yes.
all I can do is sit beside them.
Yes. And
Yeah.
and where the relationship, the awareness on both sides is, I'm in extreme grief, and the other
Mm-hmm.
side is, I need to manage my feeling of helplessness,
Mm.
and not make you responsible for my helplessness. I need to
Yeah.
not make you responsible for my pain. I need to make you not responsible for my helplessness, because that is where they start doing the silver linings. I heard a lot of, well, at least you got to have what so many of us always have wanted and will never have. And it's like, there are no consolation prizes,
Right.
you know? Like, don't you would never tell a mother who lost their 4-year old, at least you got to have them for 4 years.
Yeah.
So we say things in the moment as a society to escape our helplessness, and I think the biggest part of any relationship repair, right, is awareness. That's where you
Yes.
start with all of it.
What would you say to someone who's sitting in that helplessness and is feeling the panic to say something to make it feel better? What is an honest response from the feeling of a helplessness person to a grieving person to say, to be, what is something good to say versus at least you got to love him, at least you got to have him,
Hmm.
what a gift kind of thing?
Yeah. I think if we go in with the fundamental agreement first
Mm,
that nothing can fix this,
yeah.
and then if you already know that, then even for that person, they're like, okay, there's not, I can't fix
That,
this.
yeah.
So it
Totally.
removes, it alleviates a level of pressure on that side. There's nothing, there's actually nothing, there's loss here. There's nothing that you can do to fix this. And the only thing someone would ever need from you goes back to what we said already, which is, are you willing to get in the water and swim?
Hmm.
You know, I don't need you on the shore casting a lifeline, like
Hmm.
grab the rope. It's like, no, I, being in the ocean of grief, there's nothing wrong with it. Come in and join me. And
Hmm.
that person and them just being willing to offer up, I will sit with you, whatever it is, and I will manage myself, and I'm going to hold space. And that is the gift. It always comes back to presence. So
Presence. Yep.
yeah, yes. And of course we have talked about, there are basic needs, basic human needs that you can for sure provide, but language fails us as good as we can be at it. Sometimes, as much as, usually even when something does land, it's not, you don't remember what the words were. You just
Hmm.
remember that moment with that person who was writing it out with you. And you're like, I can't even remember what they said, but it was the fact, it was like the connection that
Hmm.
mattered. And so, yeah, it's like there's nothing we can say. There are no words. Language is going to fail. And the only thing that's going to end up making a difference in the long term with my ability to build capacity to hold this is for people to continue showing up and helping me carry what this boulder that I am now assigned to carry.
Yeah. Yeah. What are your thoughts on people who maybe have said the things and are listening to this right now and are like, oh God, I said the thing that I probably shouldn't have said,
Totally.
around circling back and finding that person and
Yeah.
be like, you know what? In that moment, I think I blew it and I was just trying to help, but it was probably coming from my own place of discomfort. I'm going to try and do better next time. I just want to be present with you. I would love the
Yeah.
opportunity to sit with you.
Oh yeah. I mean, there, when this happened, there were so many moments before where I right, I'm like, nothing to change your perspective other than
Right.
experience. And
Totally.
so
Yep.
there were times where I even um was like, wow, I really missed the mark on that. And because of course it's coming from an empathetic
Mm-hmm.
place. It's a desire. It's, oh my God, this person is suffering so much, and I would do anything for you to not suffer. And then, and to an extent, it's like, you like, the effort is there.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're just not good at it. Like, it might have been the wrong thing, but the effort was there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do. I mean, I had a friend, it was one of the best things that was ever said. She's like, I keep reaching out even though I have nothing to say.
I love that. How honest.
Yes. And it's just like, she's like, saying nothing feels wrong, but I
Mm-hmm.
also don't have anything to say. So I just keep sending you, $5 on Venmo to buy a coffee. And I just want you to know, and if, I'm thinking of you.
Yep.
Do you want to get coffee? It's just, it's letting someone know that they're not in it alone. And absolutely there's, um, and, and from the perspective of the grieving person, it really, it's not personal.
Yeah,
That's
totally.
that you can't take it personal. It's not worth holding it against anyone. When you're learning how to be good at something, that you've never been required to be good at before, you're going to
Totally.
bump into some edges on both
Yeah,
sides, you
totally.
know?
That's a great framing of it because it's true. This is uncharted territory.
Mhm.
And I love the expression of it. You're going to bump into some edges. And
Yeah.
all you can do is live and learn and try not to hit the edge again.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, without a doubt. Was there ever a moment, like you seem so connected to who you are as an individual and you seem so unique and I think that's like I love that about you. And when you if you ever fell into this sort of like expectation of what you thought grief should be, either from your own mind and experience or from what people were giving you to carry, was there ever a moment where you're like, fuck it, I have to do this my way?
Uh, I mean, I think that would be a great thing to tell anyone. Like, like, because yeah, I think you probably put expectations, we all do,
Yeah.
on ourselves. Uh, and again, I had some really great people around me.
Hmm.
Um, there wasn't I mean, it was weird. I found myself performing more on the when we were going through initially, like, the legal process.
Hmm.
Um and so that, I don't know if, like, maybe that was where the mirror was coming out, as far as like, why are you people pleasing? Why are you trying to be a good girl? Why are you trying to be polished? Um the fact that you're not acting like a feral animal right now is actually what's crazy.
Hmm. Right? I mean,
So
literally, yes.
yes, yes. So I
That makes
think,
so much sense.
yeah, so I don't so of course, some, maybe it was in that, instead of like, you play right, trying to be more professional and sharp and put together in that arena, when it's like, that is this is not your job. This is
Hmm.
not, any of that. And if anything, I think you being a little bit more crazy here is warranted. So, like, let's, you know, like, I said a lot. I was like, no, I understand why Daenerys in Game of Thrones, why she burns the city down 100%. And
Hmm.
so there are times where potentially, maybe even with women in particular, that, like, good girl or the independent woman, I'm like, those are protective mechanisms
Right.
for sure. That is, and they came online at some point, because that's exactly what, at some point they served you, at some point they protected you, and that is not going to get the job done here. So I think, if anything, if someone feels that coming on board, I'm like, why don't you act a little bit more feral and see how that feels?
This this moment we're in is what I like to call the now what. The moment after the old story ends and before the new one starts. The moment most women get stuck in for the longest. When I was in my major now what moment, I would have done anything for an actual step-by-step way forward. I love mindset content. I love reflection, but what I really needed in that moment was actual movement, so I built it. It's called Now What, and it's a 12-week program for women in the middle of life not going as planned. Maybe it's divorce or burnout or identity shifts, health stuff, or just the unexpected thing. It walks you through the 5 steps. You want to first release the past so you stop replaying it. You want to reclaim yourself from fear so you actually can start moving forward. You want to redefine what you want, not what looks good on paper, but what actually feels good. And then you want to rewrite and start writing your next chapter, This is the momentum you will actually feel. And the last step that is so important is learning how to rebound, because through this, you're going to have setbacks, and moving forward, you're going to have setbacks. But learning how to rebound fast and keep moving forward and writing those next chapters is so critical. And it's the confidence that you need to live the happy life that you so deserve. So, if this gap is where you are right now, this is what I built just for you. Not to mention, I have a 30-day feel better sprint, because honestly, when you are lying on the kitchen floor or the couch crying because life does not look like how you thought it would, you just want to feel better. So I've intentionally built that in to focus on those first 30 days to make sure that you just start feeling better fast, because that's what leads to movement. So if this sounds like something that you're interested in, or something that you need, or something that a friend desperately needs, check out the link in the show notes to sign up and be the first person to know about it as soon as it launches. I think about the scripts that we apply to ourselves, and that, we get so nervous in these new arenas that could be any part of our life, that you're like, okay, I literally have never been here before. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to just kind of pick up someone else's model and apply it. But I
Yes.
think having the wherewithal and the connection to yourself, which is hard when you're traumatized, to
Yeah.
feel like actually, like, you will feel it in your bones when it is not a fit for you. To your point, like, the feral and the crazy starts to
Mm-hmm.
surface, and that may not be your end point, but I love the idea of, like, embrace it and let it go, like, let it out and see where the dust
Mm-hmm.
settles, to figure out, like, what is your real version of this new scenario.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Because you're not you are not going to be the same person. The whole
Mhm.
the knowing that I had immediately was, your life here is over.
Yeah.
Because if you stay here, you will be living among ghosts.
Mm,
You will be forever in this who you were, or like to everyone beforehand, because the truth is allowing people to change is really hard. It takes a lot
mhm.
of understanding. It's why people leave small towns. They're like, I
Yeah.
got to get out in order
Yeah.
to try my new identity. Or it was being stuck in the I the everything blew up even to a national level, and I couldn't go anywhere without being recognized, and going back to, I'm not going to be recognized for the moment that I lost everything, because that's actually not who I am as a person.
Yeah.
And so needing to get out of that. um I guess I kind of forgot where I was going with this.
Oh, welcome to my brain. I
Okay,
forget where I'm
yes.
going at all times.
Yeah, I was like, I
Um,
think we were going somewhere, but anyway, that's what came to mind. So,
but it's kind of like peeling again the shoulds away, or the story that has been laid upon you, and that allowing to people to evolve and change. And you felt like such a recognized figure that you're like, how am I
mhm.
supposed to evolve or grow or
Yeah,
move forward, anything, when I'm just stuck in this past version of myself that doesn't exist anymore?
no, because it's even, down to, like, when I think one of the interview questions was like, well, what's changed? And
Mm,
um again, another one of those things where you're like, well, this isn't a really maybe a great answer, because we want to, right? We're like, what's changed for the better? Or like,
mm,
what's been empowering? Or, not to say that that's what you were looking for, but it's like, I don't have tolerance for anything. My threshold and the way that you relate to people
mhm,
completely changes. And I think that is what's so difficult in your really close relationships, is because people are very used to relating to you in a certain way that you
mhm.
know that you will never be able to relate to ever again, because it's like that trajectory, right? The knob. It wasn't just like, oh, I went and I had this experience and now it's my trajectory is this way. The knob has been turned 180 degrees. You look around and you're like, I know outside looks the exact same, but nothing is familiar.
Yeah.
Grief, it's like sadness is an emotion. Grief is a terrain. It's entirely disorienting. I have to reorient myself to this terrain now. And it's like, this looks the same on the outside, but the operating system on the inside is completely different and it doesn't function the way that it used to. Even down to there's the grief of I was a very high functioning person. I would
Mm,
remember dates. I had time awareness. I was great at like timing, forecasting, all of that. It's hilarious. I show up 5 minutes late to everything now. It drives
mm.
me nuts. I'm like, I was like, I'm now a late person just
Yeah.
because they're like, so it's a very, you are getting to know you, and that's really hard because you're used to knowing you and moving through the world with you. Like I know who I am as Patrick's wife, and as a
Hmm.
wife, and as a woman who owns a business and runs a business, and as a coach, and as someone who's really successful. I it's like this new person who now makes decisions by herself, who
Hmm.
doesn't, I don't know, like the future that
Hmm.
that's gone. Like the future's gone, I'm gone, he's gone. There's really, you think it's just the loss of the person, and the woman who I was going to be 10 years from now, she will never exist.
Right. And have you felt like, as you were saying, this new sort of inside version of you, because you've been completely disoriented and now you have to kind of like read the new map of who you are, have you lost relationships along the way? Just people sort of
Yes.
naturally peeling off, or people that need to be peeled off because they, for whatever reason, through this process?
Yes, there have been both. And I didn't want that to happen because a loss is a loss. And when
Right.
you are,
Right.
you're like, God,
You're like, do I have to
how
lose
many?
more?
Yes,
Totally.
exactly.
Yes,
You
totally.
tend to, that is you don't want to lose anything else. And so, it's really easy to just to grip. But again, it goes back to, it's like, and some of them, some people immediately, they're right. It's like, how emergent is it? Is this
Mm,
is this harming me to be around
yeah.
this person, and therefore there's zero tolerance and they're gone? There was a relationship like that in my life that was very, very hard, just because of who this person had been. And then there are other things where you're just like, for me, I'm like, this person just won't, they're not they're not
Hmm.
getting it. And it's like,
Hmm.
well, that's not in your control, and they're not harming you. They don't have an awareness, they don't have the skill, they don't have the capability to meet you where you're at, and that does not make them a bad person. It
Hmm.
just means that the energy that you are putting into them needs to not, you just need to stop doing that, and
Hmm.
allow the relationships to change. Because I think, and they, and again, a really close relationship. And so you, the thing that has also surprised me though in that shifting is, there are people who come out of the woodwork truly,
Yeah.
and you're like, but you get it.
Hmm.
And it is, so it always, I think, because of course it's happening in a way of devastation and all of that, but it's the same that it is in any part of your life, where as soon as you let something go, it opens up the space for something else.
Hmm.
And there is, not to say that it's any easier, it's going to be less painful if you lose it, when you lose, if and when. And it's not going to be the void or the emptiness. There are going to be people who come along, and you now have that space to allow for this relationship to be the thing that it is that you actually need.
Yeah. Right. These are the unexpected things that, like, if you just, to your point, open your heart and realize where you are, that the right things will come in for you. And I think that's, hopefully that's very comforting to people who are starting to feel like, why does this person who was so I was so connected to before, this
Hmm.
doesn't feel true or right anymore. And it's
Hmm.
probably, I can imagine, so terrifying to shift energy and to, make relationship changes there. But it opens to your point, it opens the door for what you do need.
Yes. And I think the other thing too, like there's so many times where like the Patrick isms that
Mm,
constantly come up, and it's like which again just brings him in to keeps him present and real
mhm.
uh in my life. And there was one time, it was actually with my younger sister, and she was 18 and I'm 14 years older than her. And I hung out with her and I was like, God, I feel like I blew it with her. We're not close. We were so close when we were little and all of that. And Patrick was like, which is oddly enough, he's like, people live a long time.
Oh, the
But
irony.
like, yeah, oh, the irony. Oh, Patrick. Um, but he's like, you never know where he's like, don't just
Mhm.
because it's not where you want it to be today, don't write that person off.
Mm,
So it's like everyone now, people may not adjust as fast as you. It may take them longer for them to adjust in their life, right? Like the change, I didn't have the choice. The change for me
right.
had it happened immediately. It was a fracture. Everything was split into before and after.
Mhm.
The truth is that obviously doesn't happen for everyone. So
Yeah.
their journey across that chasm might be okay. Well, they had to go down and they have to go around and they're coming, whatever. And so I think also the important thing is truly allowing it to acknowledging this is what it is. And I'm not going to just write that person off, because you never know, people can surprise you and there could be something down the road. And while I am hopeful for that, I also am not going to just like I have to keep focusing on what I can focus. And if that comes in, I'm open to that, but we're also not there right now. It could happen though.
I think that's great relationship advice for anyone, whether you're in grief or not, to, have your boundaries and
Hmm.
your needs, your boundaries, and if they can't be met, to take your distance and to focus on you and where you are and your path, but open heart. If something comes back around, you still have your needs, your boundaries. And if that fits at a later point in life, so be it. And if it doesn't, at least you've been true to yourself. Easier said
Yes,
than done. I say that like, oh, easy breeze.
always.
But relationships,
Yes,
oh, the matters of the heart are so complicated. So
they really are.
complicated. And
Yeah.
the farthest thing from linear.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
one of the things that I like that you talk a lot about is this notion of growth and capacity versus getting to like a finish line. And you had said, you've been given a boulder to carry now, and it sounds so daunting and so heavy, and I know it is. How to explain to us the notion of capacity to you and how that fits into your grief journey?
Yeah, there to me, there was the difference. I explained it, the difference between coping and capacity. There are
Mm-hmm.
so many things like gaslighting could be a cope.
Mm-hmm.
you know
Yep.
um like either you do it, and you can do it to yourself,
I was
somebody
just
else
going to
doesn't,
say that. That's
right?
so funny
Like
you said that.
it's
I was literally just thinking that, whether it be to yourself to get through a situation
yes,
or others, neither of them are good.
yeah, exactly, so that you could do that. And also if the coping aspect of things, there's no shame or judgment in it. I'm not saying you're either doing it right or you're doing it wrong. The A cope to me is something that short term alleviates, but could really be corrosive behavior down the road.
Mm,
But sometimes you do need a cope.
totally.
Sometimes you need to be numb. Like
Hmm.
you cannot feel all of this all of the time. And so I'm saying, if there's, like your body has a natural disassociative, that's a protection mechanism. There's nothing to feel about that. So, and I'm like, man, I understand everything. I understand why people do heroin. Are you kidding me? To just
Make it stop
check
for a second.
out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, if you
Yeah.
do heroin all the time, that's also your choice. I
Sure.
don't know I don't know what you want out of life, I
Mm-hmm.
guess, is what we could say. It's like, well, what do you want out of life? And uh I had it, I talked with someone. It does really help to talk to people who have lost something because they are proof of concept. Because anyone
Mm-hmm.
else, you're like, well, you could just be bullshitting me,
Yeah.
And so there's
Yeah.
this proof of concept, and so there are these oddly enough, they're all women in my life who have lost something. They're further along in the journey than me,
Mm-hmm.
and one of them said, because I was worried, I was like, I don't function at all. When am I going to get my capacity back? And she's like, it could happen. I think it will for you. Maybe it won't. That's not the thing. It's why do you want to be here?
Mm.
What's your why are you here?
Yeah.
Why aren't you checking out? Because it is, there are times where it's like, the acceptance part, or the reality of, I have to rebuild a life that I don't have a lot of interest rebuilding, because I had the life that I wanted. I
Yeah.
already built the life that I wanted. That was taken from me. It's gone. And you are now in this place of, so I think, like, the coping capacity, that is more of a, what are your goals, or what do you
Mm-hmm.
want out of life? Because if you're just like, I want to be as pain free as possible, that's an entirely different approach to life.
Yeah.
And who am I
Totally.
to say that's wrong? That's what you want. My why was because I am not done loving.
Mm. That's beautiful.
That and that was my knuckle tattoos are make love. Patrick's
Mm.
were long game. We, on our anniversary, got our life ethos tattooed, and it is when someone who you love passes,
Mm-hmm.
it is so brave for you to stay. It is one of the bravest things you can do, because as long as you're here, you are saying yes to feeling that love now in a form of grief. We all know that that's what it is that you are now carrying, and you are now the conduit of that love that remains. You are the version of it walking through this world. So me staying here
Mm-hmm.
is Patrick and I's love.
Mm.
And so that for me was my why. It's like, oh, I'm staying because as long as I stay, the love stays and the love remains. And it doesn't erase everything that he and I had and what we built. And that is, life is worth engaging in for me still,
Yeah.
because there is love. That is
Yes.
my personal ethos. And so then, if you have this why, you are, the reality of this is an incredibly difficult, daunting thing for you to now go and rebuild your life from, I'm talking complete rubble.
Yes.
And so, in the I guess the comparison would be physical fitness, right?
Mm.
If you have to lift something very heavy, your physical vessel needs to be strong in order to carry that load. And from the heart perspective, from the soul perspective, building the capacity to carry what it is that you are carrying, and to feel everything, and to not get stuck.
Mm.
Because when you feel rage, there's nothing wrong with feeling rage. It
Yeah.
is a complete appropriate response to what was taken from you. When you feel disgust from the violence and just the senseless violence that happened in my life, disgust is a core emotion, and it's the only appropriate thing to feel in that
Absolutely.
moment. And so you have to build this container large
Mhm.
enough to hold it, to feel it, and then for it to not break you so it becomes you. So I don't, anger is not who I am, disgust is not who I am, resentment, bitterness, all of those things, but you're doing what it takes for you to be strong enough to say, I'm going to hold this, I'm going to feel it, I'm not going to deny that. And that's a lot of work that is really, really exhausting. And then I'm also not going to let it become me, because this is, if I build something from resentment and bitterness,
Mhm.
that's, I'm probably not going to want to live in that house.
No, that's not authentic to who you are, to your point,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And that
Yes.
and as we've discussed, that can't sit in our bodies. You can only be inauthentic for so long until we burst and something has to change. I think that's an incredible way to put it. I want to be mindful of your time. I could sit and ask you questions for hours, but I can imagine how exhausting this conversation is. I think, when you talk about building capacity and carrying the things and, adding the feelings and the emotions into the container that you have built, I think about the woman who is doing the work and is building the capacity and hasn't given up on love and her true authentic self, but is required to be so strong every day and is having a day where she's sitting in her car and she's listening to this and she's so tired of being strong and just wants to be something
Hmm.
else for a minute, what would you say to her?
Yeah. It's, uh, that is, it's, I myself, right, have, told people, like, please don't tell me I'm strong. That asks me to stand straighter under the weight of what I'm already carrying.
Mhm.
And the other aspect of it, you, this idea maybe even of, you're so strong, I could never survive something like this. And for the woman, like, it's like, well, that's just simply not true. You haven't been asked to carry this yet. Um, your love for your child isn't stronger than the mother who lost her child, that your love would have killed you, but her,
Mhm.
right? Like, it's it, just being really aware of, and if you are performing strength, I mean, I'm not going to tell you how to feel. If that's something that's helping you, right,
Mhm.
who would I be? But uh the softness in it
Mm.
is what gets you through. I don't sometimes I think the word strength, I mean, words do matter.
Yeah,
And so sometimes I think it's more of like, well, let's put that attribute on the table. Like, you can be strong and be at rest, you know.
I love that. I think
There's a,
people
like,
forget that.
yes,
I
yeah,
think
it's
people
like,
forget that. I think strength feels like such a action word, that
yes,
it really
yes,
is the act of carrying. It is the act of always figuring it
yes,
out and always being it have together. You can be, I
yes,
love that you can
yes,
rest. You can be at rest and be strong. I think sometimes it's
yes,
brave to rest because
yes.
then you feel some things when you rest.
Well, and yeah, and it's required. Like, again, with my background, the fitness aspect, but it's like, if you can back squat 200 pounds, you can do that when you're under the barbell. You can still do that when you go home and take a nap.
Hell yeah. Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
like that.
Yeah.
That does not. So of course, part of building capacity is strength. Strength and
Hmm.
capacity are not 100, or not the same thing. They're not like all inclusive. They are, part of capacity is strength.
Yeah.
But if you're building capacity, you're also building the capacity of being soft.
Hmm.
You're building the capacity to keep your heart open when the
Hmm.
world has given you every reason to close it.
Yeah.
And so I when I yeah, I think when it's, strength is a wonderful attribute and it
Mhm.
can be helpful in these things. So the woman who feels the need to be strong all the time, it's like, of course that's helping you. I would never tell you to be weak.
Mhm. Right. Right.
And capacity is carrying is developing other attributes, other skills that's going to allow you to survive this in a way that really, going back to taking care of your vessel, taking care of your soul, uh we there's probably other tools in the tool bag, and strength isn't the end all be all, and you resting doesn't take away your strength either.
No, and I love that you talked a lot about softness even outside of rest, because I think one of the things that we often forget is that healing isn't just the capacity to handle something. It is to find
Mm-hmm.
the capacity again for softness, for joy, for
Mm-hmm.
love, for those things
Yes.
that we often feel like get tabled there for a minute while we're building the
Mm-hmm.
foundation of strength to then build the capacity. But it is also the capacity to let life feel good again. So I
Absolutely.
love this. I love the encouragement of if she's sitting there and she's like, I'm so sick of just having to feel
Mm-hmm.
strong all the time. What if you were brave enough to let your feel soft for a minute? That doesn't, to
Mm-hmm.
your point, it doesn't take away from your strength. You can still bench whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
but you're just exploring something else and maybe that would feel good too.
Yeah. Yes. And I think the permission to feel good and to pursue things that feel good and to get rid of the things that don't
Mm,
is also if people are like, I don't even know where to begin,
yeah, I can imagine.
that's, especially when it comes to the rebuild, it's,
Mhm.
well, what feels good today?
Yeah. That's so interesting you say that. Some of the things that like when we talk about connecting to our why, which is, I mean, that is where we find our purpose. That's why our eyes open in the morning. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that can feel so daunting, at least to me. And so the
Mm-hmm.
thing that has carried me through and has genuinely changed my life is to be like, hey, how do you want to feel today? And just own
Yes.
that. Pick a word and be responsible for that. Life is still going to life. Who knows what's going
Mm-hmm.
to happen? But can you carry that feeling that you want to feel today throughout the day? And how can you do that? How can you be gentle
Yeah.
with yourself while you do that? And like, what a gift to be able to give whatever that feeling is to yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't
Absolutely.
know. Yeah, just made me think of that. Sarah, your insight has just been like truly profound. I feel like I've gotten I'm like, I'm literally doing the Home Alone face. I'm like, my mind is blown by so many things that we have uncovered today around grief. I think I know without a shadow of doubt that so many women who are sitting in grief who are listening to this feel so seen, and so much permission has been given to them to be authentic in their own grief and to, gosh, we've talked about so many things of, sort of letting those big, messy, quote unquote, messy, but are so authentic feelings out. Be rageful, be upset, be disgusted, be like, those are all in there and they're telling you something, how to take care of your vessel, how to evaluate relationships, how to nourish yourself, what capacity looks like. And sort of also this ocean of being to be able to evaluate where you are and to be able to ask for what you need. I mean, that is just tip of the iceberg. I feel like this has just been so insightful. And I know that you carry this work with you and that has been part of your path forward. How can people connect with this great work that you do? You're an incredible writer. I love reading your posts. And I
Thank
know you have
you.
a podcast as well. How can people find you?
Yeah, the easiest way is I'm on Substack. It's the Lady Heringer, and my podcast is called This Is Healing.
Mm,
And so I write there. My podcasts are released there first, but the podcasts are also on any major like Spotify, Apple. I think like whatever platform you listen to, you can find it. The work though is Substack is my primary. I am on social media, Sarah Heringer on Facebook, The Lady Heringer on Instagram. However, people, The Lady Heringer at gmail.com. If anybody, I'm very open. If people want to reach out, connect, become pen pals, whatever it is, that is, I'm kind of an open book in that regards. But yeah, if people are more interested in the reading or the podcast, the Substack format is probably the best way, and they can also engage there with writing questions and the like.
It's incredible to build community and to give voice to grief. Like you said, we are so uneducated and so uninformed when it comes to grief as a society. So the work you're doing hopefully fuels your soul, but truly serves such an
Mm-hmm.
incredible purpose. So thank you for the work that you do.
Yeah, thanks for the shout out.
Yeah, heck yeah. We will link everything in the show notes too. So you're just one boop away so that people can find that connection with you and they can feel, that sense of understanding and relief and a light and a path forward. Like you said, you are, although you have surrounded yourself in community of many women who are steps farther along in their journey, and that's your lighthouse, you are the lighthouse for so
Mm-hmm.
many people as well. So I appreciate how you
Yeah,
handle that opportunity and responsibility. So I think it's incredible. Sarah, thank you for everything. And thank
yeah,
you everyone for listening. Please share this episode, whether you are someone who is in grief or you know someone in grief, or just as a great educational piece for those of us who have people in our lives who are grieving, for how to be a better support system. All right, Sarah, thank
thanks.
you. And thank you everyone
Thank
for
you.
listening. And we will catch you next time. Well, that's the end of this episode, but promise me, you won't stop here with whatever it is you're feeling or dreaming about. I hope you leave today feeling empowered to live life just as you see fit. If this podcast was helpful to you, it would mean the world to me if you could leave a review on whatever platform you're listening on. I genuinely just want to help women live the life they dream about. So if this type of content tracks with you, subscribe to this podcast or visit our website, writeyourownsstory.co, to download digital courses or to grab a journal and a mug to just dream in and dream with. It's your life, lady. Do you. And just remember, I'm rooting for you and you've totally got this.